Hey guys, Terrence here. Today I'll be giving you guys some tips and recommendations on how to give your car or truck a super tune-up. When we think about tuning up our cars or trucks, the most common parts we think of are replacing the spark plugs and the spark plug wires to keep the engine operating smoothly. But to me, a tune-up is far deeper than that. We rely on our vehicles to get us to point A to point B and back to point A. So it's our jobs to keep the maintenance up on our vehicles to do such. Today I'll be showing you guys some cost-effective things that you can do to keep your vehicle running in tip-top shape. So let's get started. I purchased this Chevy Avalanche. It's a 2005 Chevy Avalanche maybe a few weeks ago, and the service engine light is on due to it has a misfire. One of the coils are bad, but I want to show you guys the coils itself. So if you can look at the coils, they look like they are original coils from the factory. This truck has 191,000 miles on it. So instead of replacing just one, let's go to this side. I'll be replacing all of them and the wires and also the spark plugs. But it's important to know that once these coils go bad, you can rest assured that the other ones will go bad. There's been some instances where coils went bad when the car has lower miles and it was suitable just to replace the one coil. In this case, it's better for me to change all the coils in this truck and all the spark plugs and the wires, since they doesn't look like they have been changed at all since the factory. So I'll be taking care of that. I'll also be changing the air filter, the oil in the oil filter. There wasn't an oil stick in this truck, and the guy did say that the oil was changed. But since it's a used truck, and I recommend this to anyone who purchases a used car or used truck, that you should get the oil change immediately, so you can have it for your records. The oil change, the date, and how many miles was on the car when you got the car. So it's a personal thing. You can have your own personal records of the oil change, because you don't want the engine to go bad with bad oil, which can tend to happen. Those lifters go to tapping, and it'll be too late. So I'll be changing the oil, the air filter, oil filter, even the brakes on this truck. They're pretty good, but I'm gonna replace them with some premium ceramic pads I bought online. I had these plugs for this truck. These are some platinum Bosch plugs. A lot of the newer cars are using iridium powered iridium spark plugs, which is great. You can get up to 100,000 miles with those spark plugs. And I think it's important for us to change these spark plugs when the car gets higher mileage, especially with these look like they've never been changed. But if your car has less than 100,000 miles, I wouldn't even bother doing this. I'll change the wires if need so, but I wouldn't bother neither one. I'll also be changing the oil on this truck. And online, there's a lot of sellers selling great packages with these spark plugs, these spark plug wires, these thick gauge spark plug wires, and all 8 coils for this truck. They sell them in sets of 8, 4, and 6. But this truck needs 8, so I bought all 8 and the wires as a set. I had these Bosch spark plugs already for this particular truck, the Avalanche, but with any Chevy vehicle, General Motors vehicle or engine, I recommend AC Delco spark plugs. They're great, but I had those already. This is a road truck for me. I used the Bosch spark plugs to save a few dollars, but yeah, I recommend the AC Delcos for all General Motors products. They're great. It's probably the standard plug for this engine or General Motors. So another thing I want to talk about is when you're giving your car a super tune-up, you want to make sure all the fluids are topped off like this. It's pretty low, so cold fuel should be up here. I haven't started this vehicle today, so I'll tip that off. I'll be changing the oil. I won't be changing the trans fluid, so I'll check that as well to make sure it's tipped off. Trans shifting pretty good in here, but like I said, I'll change the air filter and make sure the brake fluid's okay. This truck, one of the brake lines are busted. That's the only reason I'm changing the brakes, because the brakes are okay, and this truck has been sitting up. So I'm gonna change the brakes for that reason. So if you're feeling a tremble or a shake in your steering wheel when you get on the expressway at high speeds, typically you have a tire issue or your brake pads are low. When you get up to higher speeds, like maybe 55 plus, and you feel a tremble in your steering wheel, you may need some pads. Those pads may be low, and you have that space between the pad and the rotor, and it creates that tremble, that shake in the steering wheel. So that's one thing you could check when you're giving your car a super tune-up. And I just recommend you trying to do all these things at once. I know money is tight and things may happen doing your driving the vehicle, there may be an emergency breakdown or something like that, and you may have to get that particular part fixed. But when you give your car a tune-up, you sense it's missing, or there's a misfire in the engine, or there's you may want to get the oil change. Have everything checked out. Have all the fluids tipped off. And in this case, like I said, there's a misfire in this engine, and I'm changing all cores and all spark plug wires and all spark plugs. I'll be doing another video for that in a second. You want to keep this vehicle reliable so you can depend on it, especially when it's about to get cold outside. High mileage vehicles, 75,000 plus. I think it's important to use a fully synthetic oil or a synthetic blend. I recommend a full synthetic. It costs a little bit more, but it's worth the cost. And some form of oil treatment, whether it's the STP oil treatment or the Lucas oil stabilizer. This is my preference right here. This is what I recommend. I've been using this stuff for years. It is great. Oil alone, like it says, is not good enough. Use some type of oil treatment or oil stabilizer. And this is what I'll recommend. And I'll recommend full synthetic, even though the synthetic blend is fairly good for vehicles with high mileage. But those are my recommendations also. Add some fuel treatment. Clean those injectors every once in a while, but when you're doing a super tune-up, add some fuel injector cleaner in the tank. This is 12 ounces. It treats up to 28 gallons, so this is also important.